My grandfather, he had agricultural land and farming was his profession. But my father chose not to take that up. So that itself was a departure from living a life of comfort and moving into uncharted territories. My father was very clear that's not the way his outlook to life was. And I do think he's influenced my mother also there, where he said that our job is really to make sure the best wealth we can give them is education. I'll tell you one thing that I've learned that cut across most or all organizations that I've worked with, right? It is the people connect and it's the human touch. It is leaders who kind of shape your own careers. When I gave birth to my son, KK Rajesh came home and he didn't have to use a head of the business. And there's one thing he told me, and I was like, I want to come back to work, and I'm coming back, okay? And that time it was 3 months maternity. Usme bhi, this whole thing of, are you missing out on your career and all? So I'm coming back home. And he told me one thing. He said there are two kinds of losses in life. One is replaceable and the other is irreplaceable. And he told me, he said that, if you jump into work right now, the time that you lose, which you will spend with your son in bringing him up, that's irreplaceable. In my parlance, I always use this parlance, saying that put the fish on the table. Putting the fish on the table actually means that address the issue, right? Put it out there. And I've seen that, wherever you do that, and if that's part of your culture, both vulnerability and strength will come out. The unconditional positive regard for people is one. And if I may add one more, please. I think the freedom to explore would be the other. There's a book called The Advice Trap by Michael Stainer. And I think what I really love about that book is about how just refraining from giving advice can be so empowering to the other person. Awesome. Not that I have practiced it completely, but that's something that I always keep. I'm going to quote something that one of my colleagues actually said. The speed with which you come to office being greater than the speed with which you want to leave the office, I think is the happiness.
Hi, welcome to Office Tales and People podcast. Today I have with me Priya M. Pillai, Head HR of Titan. She handles corporate, retail and manufacturing and has been here for, Priya, about 10 years now.
Close to a decade, yeah.
Yeah, close to a decade. And welcome, Priya, to OTP.
Thank you.
And we're very excited to have you here with us today.
It's my pleasure and honor.
Let's start with your personal journey. I know you're very close to your father and he's always prioritized his education of his daughters, right? And that's what you had shared with me some time back. I just wanted to know how has that impacted your career, your life, your journey?
My father is my pillar of strength. And it's been not a very easy journey, I would say, because, and it may sound very strange at this point in time when I share the story, that he had to walk almost 10 to 15 kilometers just to reach his school.
Right.
And it was in a place called Chittoor in Kerala. So it wasn't an easy journey for him. And he was also one amongst the two children. And I know that my father got education right up to the 12th standard. And post that, the family couldn't afford. And therefore, he moved on to trying some jobs. And I think through his friends or somebody, he heard about the defense. And he wrote the exam. That's how he got into defense. And he moved to Coimbatore from Kerala. And, I always look at that journey, and I don't think back then these phrases existed, which is adaptability, learning agility, all of which we talk about in leadership.
I'm sure there was jargons back then,
And at that point it was survival. One had to kind of just move out. My grandfather, he had agricultural land and farming was his profession, but my father chose not to take that up. So that itself was a departure from living a life of comfort and moving into uncharted territories. So he did that, and after he got married, my sister was born in Shillong, and I was born in Delhi. So you know that he's actually been in multiple locations, multiple places.
Rightfully so.
So life is, and imagine somebody who's had complete education in Malayalam and then going into places where you speak Hindi.
Yeah, like all across India, I'm
or
sure.
other parts Northeast where one has to adjust to that that lifestyle, the people, the culture. I don't think it would have been easy. I mean, obviously, I don't remember that part of their lives, but I do hear stories from my mother and my dad in terms of how even cuisine they had to get adjusted
Yeah, I'm sure.
to that culture. And then obviously with my sister and me being born, I think one of the stories that I've heard from my father and my mother are that often they would have to hear from the family ecosystem that, oh, you've got two girls, and it'll be a lot of expenses. You have to get both of them married. And, girls means they're going to move out of the house. Though we are from a matriarchal society, right? Our family is matriarchal, and therefore the M actually stands for my mother's side of the
Oh,
family.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they would always talk about, okay, you've got two girls, unko shadi kara ke jana hai,
Bhej
and
dena
all of,
hai.
bhej dena hai, and all of that. My father was very clear that, that's not the way his outlook to life was. And I do think he's influenced my mother also there, where he said that our job is really to make sure the best wealth we can give them is education.
Education.
Right,
Awesome.
and they
Superb.
have to get the best education. And he had this dream that both my girls should study in English medium. We studied in Air Force School, and obviously, because my father, while he was in the defense, he was part of the administrative section. So the school fee structure was very different, and I know that 60% of his salary went into the school fees.
Wow.
Wow.
That's quite a bit
So
at
he
that point.
really prioritized your education.
He did. He did.
And
And it also came at a cost to him, because I think it also meant that the money he would send back home would be less. And the way he would perhaps, the kind of lifestyle they could live, and was also, and I know that even he had to take loan to buy his first scooter and all of
Yeah,
that.
all of that.
Which if he had perhaps not prioritized our education, he could have spent that money
so
on
Priya,
his
did this
lifestyle.
entire journey impacted your professional trajectory? Like the way your father dealt with you and your sister and overall, your upbringing, did it really impact your professional journey in terms of your mindset?
When I look back today, I may not have thought of this. Even if you asked me this question 10, 15 years back, I don't think I would have been able to answer this question effectively. But today, right, I do think that all of those experiences have helped me to be the person I am today.
Yeah.
One of the biggest learnings, education is really the core of whatever you do. And I think that's very important. That's something that I have also emphasized with my son. And I truly believe that's the best wealth one can give to the children. The other that I have learned from that experience is that it's very important to look forward, right? And it's very important to reframe your mind. What I mean by that is, he could have gone through the tried and tested path, but he didn't, right? He challenged and he looked at paths which are uncharted. And I believe in some ways I've done that also in my life, but I wouldn't have done it thinking that my father did it. But today, when I look back, some of the decisions, both personally and professionally, that I've taken in my life, I believe that those are experiences which have shaped me. Dealing with adversities is another, I think, experience that how my father used to do it, with chin up.
Yeah.
And not complaining, but picking up the lesson and walking ahead and rising like a phoenix. I
Yeah.
think I've learned from him.
Yeah, I see that. I know how resilient you are, having worked with you. And I guess now I know where it comes from. So it's been awesome.
Yes.
You talked about a little bit on uncharted territories. I know that you worked with HUL a couple of years, with Taj, a Mahindra or a Tata. So, and you've done sales, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you've started with sales and you've moved into HR. How has that journey been? Why did you move from sales into HR, and how did you, deal with that transformation?
I'm often asked that question, right? I'm often asked as to how did you design your career, this 10 years in sales and then moving into HR. So first I want to admit that it was not by design, right? In fact, if I look back, I would say that the reason was my life stage. Yeah.
I see.
So sales happened. I did my BA in economics from Mount Carmel's, and immediately after that, I got an offer from Taj, so I joined them. And it was very interesting because once you start earning your own money, you're feeling independent, and you love the freedom of
Financial
working
freedom is,
professional. It's amazing, right?
It's amazing.
And my father encouraged me. I remember even I'm sorry, I'm going to take a little detour, but I remember at that point in time also, okay, ladki 18 ki hai, 19 ki hai, 20 ki hai, and then shadi karwa lo, getting her married, and I'm so glad that while the societal and the family system pressure was there, my father did not,
Did
or
not.
my mother and father both did not succumb to it. And I think inadvertently I keep giving a lot more credit to my father as I speak, but yes, it's my mother and father both together who kind of allowed, and I'm using the word allowed because at that point in time you are with your parents, and that's how our family
Of course,
system
and they're
is.
also accountable
Yes.
at till a certain stage.
Correct,
Yes.
right? So
of
they gave me
course.
the permission, and I think from then on, there's no looking back. Touchwood, it's been a great journey. So Taj happened, and then Unilever, fantastic experiences, and then in 2003, I gave birth to my son, and sales jobs is a lot about traveling. You know
Yes,
that,
of
Priyanka.
course.
You've seen it so
Yeah.
much up close, and you don't do justice to that job without. I mean, there is no work from home or behind the desk in
Yeah.
sales,
Yeah.
and the thrill. I love sales. Okay, so I still love sales jobs. The thrill of going out there, getting your
And
numbers,
closing the deals.
closing the deals. I think it's fantastic. So so 2003 I gave birth to my son, and then it was not the same because I couldn't travel, and I remember my then manager was KK Rajesh. He was very kind man. He said that don't worry, you don't have to travel. You can just be in Bangalore and oversee the numbers. You have a team. He even offered me alternative roles, but my heart was set on sales. And it was internal guilt. I was like, I'm not doing the right thing, and
I won't be able to give my 100%.
I won't be able to give my 100%. So I took I took the call of leaving Unilever. Very difficult decision, and that's when Titan and the training role happened, right? And in that role, I didn't have to travel too much, and it was a job that gave me the ability to manage my son, family, as well as manage work. So that is I would say, the indoor to my journey or my career
Moving from
in HR.
sales into HR.
Yeah, so it was not by design. It actually happened because of life stage, and it has often sometimes led me to think that, and so conversation I have with my husband, if I had carried on, and some of the things that today organizations do to support women in sales, if that were to happen at that era, I don't know if my career would have
Be in
continued.
HR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a thing to tell you that I started my career in sales at a very, very young age. Like I probably would be 19 plus 20.
Oh, wow.
And I still, of course, am in sales because I'm running a company. But I just want to ask you this question that this is my personal opinion, that sales shapes a person's overall professional journey that not many other profession usually has the power. Do you also believe that sales in general as a concept, it's not that we have to sell a product. Every day, you and I and Priyanka, we have sold ourselves in many ways as mothers, daughters, sisters, friends, and even men. So sales is a concept that shapes a human being in so many ways. That's how I have experienced. What's your opinion about sales?
Okay. Politically wrong question to ask. When I have so many functions, divisions as part of the ecosystem in HR. But let me give you my perspective, and this is personal. It's basis my experience. I think sales really teaches you humility,
Awesome.
right?
Yes.
It teaches you humility. It teaches you resilience.
Yes.
It gives you the strength to manage any difficult situation.
Yes.
Because it throws googlies that you've never ever experienced before.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. In fact, it's a myth when you think that sales is only job of a function called sales. If you ask me, every person, no matter what role you're in, you are selling. You're selling an idea, you're selling a concept, you're selling a thought. When you
From
also
admin to HR, everybody is selling,
when you
right?
talk about this whole competence called influencing for impact,
It's
Yeah.
the same thing.
it's another word for that is
For
selling.
sales. Yeah.
You know, when you're influencing for impact, you are trying to sell something,
your thought,
right?
your
Thoughts,
ideas.
yeah.
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 So I believe that that's a role that can and in fact I do tell people in HR, I tell my team members as well that a sales stint or a business stint, yeah, it can be sales or
Or
any other
business
role in
development,
business,
yes.
yeah, business development or business stint is very important for anybody who chooses to do HR,
HR, yeah.
right?
Right.
Because only if you have rolled up your sleeves and done the job on the ground will you be able to sit and do the people strategy or
Absolutely.
work on the people agenda. Without that experience,
Yeah.
you're sitting in the ivory tower.
And also
And-
influence policies where, people going on ground.
Yeah.
There's so much that we don't know. I mean, HR would not know
Yeah.
Yeah.
if they don't really know what's happening on ground.
Yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
the strategies that actually come out, you're saying will work because they've sort of rolled up their sleeves.
Yeah.
And you will have a shift in perspective on the
Absolutely.
strategies, which otherwise you may not. So,
Yeah.
in fact, I remember there is somebody who, our managing director Venkat, he does these group.
FGDs.
I won't even call them FGDs. Actually,
Okay.
listening platforms, right?
Okay.
He just goes and meets groups of 10 employees.
Okay.
They can be, and these are employees from the ecosystem. So they could be housekeeping staff, they could be our security staff, they could be our employees from any manufacturing,
department.
retail, any department. There'll be new people who join. So like these, right? He
Yeah.
Like a
meets-
mixed bag.
Yeah, and he meets about 550 to 600 people in a
Wow.
year
Wow.
in groups of these 10, both Venkat and Swadesh together. And there is once I remember he came back and he comes back with at least minimum 800, 850 action items
My
Wow.
God.
for all of us. Not just
800.
HR, I'm talking about yeah,
Overall.
Yeah, overall for
That's
the
a
company.
huge number.
Which goes to the leadership team and then for the leadership to
They have
actually
to
make
pick
it.
up what is
Yeah.
their part.
And by the way, we have a portal which has captures this year on year, and there's a closing that you have to do. You have to give. It's not that every point you have a solution to, but you have to
Yeah.
have a response to every
yeah.
point,
Yeah.
right? And therefore, out of that, at least about close to 40-50%, I would say,
Get-
have led to some very big decisions and shifts in the way we work and we do things. For example, there was one where it was a decision was taken because you know that retail space is very difficult to get
and expensive.
and expensive. I mean, you're from Mumbai, you know how it is. And in that retail space, what do retailers do? You maximize.
Yes.
You maximize the
Front
customer
end, yeah.
retail
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
And typically, you will not have space for
The back
restrooms.
office,
Yeah.
restrooms,
Right,
back
and
office.
women in these conversations, women spoke about to Venkat, spoke about UTI. That's how open they are. They spoke about health problems,
Yeah.
and it was mandated that just like how airlines
Yes.
have like a 5x5 restrooms, just small. They're small, but they're compact. They're clean. They're neat. I mean,
they're
use the same
usable.
concept and do it in retail, and it's been mandated. So, and you know what a relief it is? It is such a relief for all the employees because you don't have to be running around. I mean, other than malls which have it,
Yeah.
but outside of malls in high streets, it's very difficult to get. Good.
Absolutely.
So, I'm just saying some big decisions have actually come out of
those
listening
discussions,
to
yeah, those
employees.
That's
yeah.
such a good thing to do, by leadership.
Yeah.
Kudos
So
to
coming back to sales, what you said, I mean, sales does shape you, and I think sales also builds character.
So I so resonate with you on that.
No, so tell me on the HR. So when you moved from sales into HR, how was that transformation? How difficult, easy, challenging? What are
Yeah.
those one or two things that you learned along the way? Anything that you want to share on that?
Yeah, actually, it was both easy and difficult. Let me put it that way. So the difficult part was that, and Priyanka, you would know that in many of the conversations with seasoned, thoroughbred
Yes.
HR leaders and professionals, often the conversations go into some frameworks
Yes.
and
Yes.
some concepts, and I would be sitting there, I'm like, I have no clue what this was, right?
Yeah.
In those early stages when I was in getting into this role. But the easy part was that it's not rocket science.
It's not.
Right? And the beauty is that if you've done a business role, right,
You will navigate.
you'll navigate it and you have to apply it, right? And I found that they were actually looking up to me because they were looking at me because I was able to bring in perspectives
Exactly.
Yeah.
from the ground, from the business that wasn't necessarily coming
I
in
think
that
that's
room.
where diversity comes into
Yeah.
picture, you know.
And you were able
Diversity
to
of
tell them.
thought.
Diversity of thought, yeah.
That is one, but I'm saying the other way, where you said that those frameworks, you
Yeah.
can tell them what will not work.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know that, this is all BS. Just leave this aside and then let's focus. This
On
is
what
how
will
you need to use this framework.
What's the practicality of it?
Yeah,
What's
Yeah.
applicable?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that's perhaps the easy part, but I must tell you that my first entry into HR was with Titan in 2005, 4 and 5, and then it was with Mahindra's in 2008-9. So the organizations have been phenomenally kind to me, right? I mean, I would say for Titan to even give me an opportunity to take up a role which I had never done.
Yeah.
But to take a bet, and that too from somebody who's outside, and I'm sure there are many options. I think that is phenomenal, and that's why I love Titan, because I just see how they are willing to take that bet and risk. And not only do they do that with people, you see it in their businesses, right? With the number of brands that Titan has. The other is with Mahindra's when I joined them, and that in many ways was a very large, full-fledged HR for startup, right?
Right.
And there, I think the amount of freedom and confidence that Mahindra's gave me in going ahead and crafting the HR strategy basis what I knew about retail industry, I think that those learning experience will stay with me forever. And leaders and managers play a big role in that.
Yeah.
Right? So your leaders and managers can either enable you and nurture you without really being the shadow over you, because you need enough sunlight. You need to also pucko a bit, right? And the space. And it's okay to fail, and it's okay to take some risks, and we are there. That safety net is important, and I think both the organizations have been phenomenal in giving me that. And
if you have to look back to the entire journey of last, let's say, 20 years, what really stands out for you as one of the key lessons from your whatever sales, HR, multiple organization? Is there any one key lesson that has really shaped you and you have applied it again and again in your career?
I'll tell you one thing that I've learned that cut across most or all organizations that I've worked with, right? It is the people connect, and it's the human touch.
Awesome.
Right? And I'll give you examples. One, right? In Taj, I remember Mr. Anil Menon, who was the head of food and beverage, and I was in banquet sales then. He, in fact, encouraged me to go ahead and do my masters and to pursue education and that. And those are all your, I would say, lighthouses. If you ask me, it is leaders who kind of shape your own careers. KK Rajesh and Aradhana Lal from Levers. I remember when I gave birth to my son, KK Rajesh came home, and he didn't have to use a head of the business. Came home, met me, and there's one thing he told me, and I was like, I want to come back to work, and I'm coming back, okay. And that time it was 3 months maternity. Usme bhi, this whole thing of, are you missing out on your career and all? So I'm coming back, and he told me one thing. He said, Priya, there are two kinds of losses in life. One is replaceable, and the other is irreplaceable. And he told me, he said that, if you jump into work right now, the time that you lose, which you will spend with your son in bringing him up, that's irreplaceable, right? But the career experience is replaceable. You will keep getting it. If not now, you'll get after a few months.
Such a profound lesson.
Such a profound lesson. And it's always stayed with me. And I often share this now. It's like a pay forward. I often tell my team members that, when they come with, and these days, wellness and health has also been an area that we've been talking about a lot. And people are like, perhaps not spending enough time in taking care of specifically emotional wellness. And I keep telling them that emotional wellness is also a little bit in the space of irrepair. I mean, yes, you have ecosystem support to take care with counselors, but it takes a toll on you, right?
does.
And
Yeah,
but
of
if you are able
course.
to take enough pauses
Yeah.
and spend time with yourself, then you don't have to. So
Yes.
so I would say that what has really stayed with me is people connect, being authentic about it, and I would say the other is also vulnerability. Yeah, many of my leaders I have seen have demonstrated vulnerability, and I always see that as a strength. I have had once, and I will not name, but I had once a CEO who actually went into tears because there was a bad time in the business and all that. And did I see that as, oh my God,
What's going to happen to the
no, it
business?
was
Yeah.
actually there was so much more strength that came together because there was the leader who was willing to
Be
be
vulnerable.
vulnerable,
And
cry
show
and
it about it,
and say that I don't know what to do.
and be honest about it.
Yeah. So this happened in, obviously not in this, but many organizations earlier where I worked,
Yeah.
and that has stayed with me. And that being vulnerable is very important. You may not have all your answers, and it's okay.
So, Priya, you touched just now about vulnerability. I just wanted to hear from you that how do you think leaders can create an environment of vulnerability where it is encouraged and also accepted as one of the things of leadership?
So it's a difficult subject, right? And it's difficult for the reason that both from our society and our schooling, there is no space where this is
Allowed to be
so.
shown.
For example, I mean, some cliched statements that do the rounds are boys don't cry. If you are facing a difficult situation, it will pass, so keep your chin up, and
And
don't,
leaders can't be,
Seen in a
seen in a problem
like heads of
facing
families are not
and has,
expected to share,
Yeah.
right?
always just find out the solution.
Yeah.
I mean, how can a leader have solutions all the time? They
Yeah.
will also be stuck sometimes, right?
So, how do you create that environment where it's encouraged and
Yeah.
accepted?
So it's it's a difficult question, and it's also a difficult topic, and it's because of finally organizations are microcosm of society. We are no different from the way society is, and in society, where do we encourage vulnerability to be brought out? Right?
Hardly.
We actually speak about things like boys don't cry, or if you have a problem, put your chin up and smile, and
Find a solution to
also
it.
heads of families or leaders,
Yeah,
right, are not
yeah.
expected to demonstrate vulnerability. They're just supposed to demonstrate strength.
Yeah.
In
Yes.
fact, it's the reverse,
Yes.
right? There is a lot of emphasis and pressure on saying that you're always supposed to say that you know it all and that you've got solutions for everything.
And everything is okay.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you how in Titan I've experienced this, and I do think it perhaps is not stated the way you have asked me that question, but when I reflect on this question, I think the culture is already there.
Right.
So when COVID happened, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a situation that none of us ever knew. And I remember that within a week after, so we shut the office 1 week before the government lockdown had happened because
Right.
we were hearing the news. So we said,
Yeah.
okay, let's at least close office, we'll see what happens. Not that we expected a lockdown to take place. And then the lockdown happened, and one didn't even know a phrase called lockdown. And I remember that the third day after the lockdown happened, or whatever, within the first week, Venkat, our MD, came on Google Meet, and that time we had the Google Meet. So he came on Google Meet and he addressed the entire company employees,
Okay.
including our business associates, our franchisees, and all of that. And he said, "Hey, listen," and I still have such vivid thing of I think he was sitting on his terrace or somewhere because there was this tree at the background I could see, and it was all very thing. He was very happy. He was looking. And he said, "Hey, listen, you know what? It's lockdown.
Yeah.
It's time to listen to the birds chirping. It's okay to have a nap in the afternoon. Enjoy." He didn't say use the word enjoy, but there was so much he spoke about the positive side
Right.
of thing. And he
Of a
said that, "Hey, listen,
lockdown.
I don't know. I also don't know
What's going to happen?
what's going to happen. But let's go with each day, and let's discover how it will be."
And let's just plan
And-
together. And
Priyanka, I always compare this to family systems, right? He's the head of the organization, so it's like the head of the family who's coming on and giving it's a sort of giving permission, right, to letting people know that, hey, listen, relax,
Yeah.
take it easy, and even I also don't know, but we will discover it together. We will get to know it together. So that's what he did, and I can't tell you what a relief it was for people, because like, hey, listen, so he also is telling us that he doesn't know what's going to happen. So it's okay. We are all in the same situation. And at the same time, he's given us, what do you want? You want assurance. He's given us assurance that, it's all okay.
You'll be taken care of.
You'll be taken care of.
Yeah.
Was it difficult for us? Of course.
Yes.
Everybody
where
All
did
your
we
stores
ever, Priyanka, tell me,
have been
where,
shut. So many of your stores all shut, right?
have you ever seen one day where there's no revenue coming in a
Yeah,
business like
exactly.
ours? Never, right? You're never in that. And I'm sure it was similar for even the hospitality industry. So it was strange. And but I think, what did he do? He demonstrated vulnerability and strength at the same time.
Same time. Beautiful. Yeah.
And I think that's important for
I
leaders.
think that combination is very hard to demonstrate
Yeah.
from a leader or from the head of a family. And I think people who can do it, they are truly.
So I asked him this question, I asked him, I said, Venkat, when you did that, were you not scared
Scared
of
or
whatever?
something,
And, he said that, one, and I think that's also strength of great leaders, is that you must spend enough time reflecting and addressing your own internal fears. It's so important to recognize it.
Right.
Because when you recognize it and when you address it, you're able to then stand out there and speak
And
to
move
others
ahead.
with the strength and confidence.
Yeah. And move ahead.
And move ahead.
And carry them with you.
Absolutely, right? So I think, it was not that he wasn't, he was, but the reality is that he also knew that, like many others,
He's not the only
he's
one.
not the only one.
Yeah.
The whole world is going through this. So what makes it unique?
Yeah.
So, it's good to, in my parlance, I always use this parlance, saying that put the fish on the table. Putting the fish on the table actually means that address it.
Yes.
Don't put it under the carpet. Address the issue, right? Put it out there. And I've seen that, wherever you do that, and if that's part of your culture, both vulnerability and strength will come out.
That's
Yeah.
so amazing.
And I think we have spoken about our successes, and we've spoken about even places where we have not succeeded with the same, I would say, with the same celebration. So I remember in 2008 when the big economic downturn happened, and Titan company, Tanishq, was present in US and they had to come back. That learning was celebrated. It wasn't about, oh my God, So
we made a mistake.
Yeah.
Basically, mistakes are welcomed and they are looked as lesson. At least that's what I'm hearing from
And
Tatas.
vulnerability is also welcomed. Vulnerability is also strength.
Yeah.
And there are times when I remember some conversations that we had in the leadership, and and I cried, and this was on some topic on something, and later on I went and I was telling couple of the other leaders,
Feeling
oh God, I was feeling,
yeah.
oh God, I cried. This was the early days. And I remember, my manager telling me that, but hey, listen, I do that all the time.
What's the
You
big
know,
deal?
what's the big deal? And I have often seen many great leaders who have that little choke or who will have that little pause because it's the emotions which are coming in. All of those are signs of vulnerability. And I think it's a great culture that Titan has, and it has happened right from the top.
If you had to just talk a little more about what really is the culture in Titan. Well, I've been with the Tatas myself.
Yes.
And so I know, but I'm sure the audience would love to hear from you.
This is a very interesting thing, because culture is what is not seen, right?
Yes.
And I remember Bhaskar once said that he defined culture as when nobody is seeing you, what do you do? That really is a culture.
Yeah.
Right?
When you're not being watched.
When you're not being
Nobody
watched.
is watching you.
Nobody's watching you.
Yeah.
And how are you behaving?
Are you
How are you
still
behaving?
doing the right thing?
And he said that when nobody is watching you, how you behave is really the culture of the organization, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think if you ask me, my coming back to Titan is and I'm grateful that the opportunity also came in and Titan chose me for that role. But the core to that is the culture, right? It's the fact that one, psychological safety is extremely important.
Yes.
Right? It's very important for any human being. And I believe that this is an organization that gives you psychological safety. Second is, in many corporates, you keep hearing about this thing of rat race and corporate race and watch out your back.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, this is one company where none of this exists. And I love this place because
Because
you
of
can
that.
just be yourself.
In fact,
right?
you know, both of you are from Tatas and you're sharing the story. I have a Tata story. I started Be.artsy and one of my initial clients was Tata Power. And I closely worked with the whole team and the person who was leading that initiative. Of course, moved out from Tata Power after many, many years of working there. And recently, just about 3 weeks back, my mother was admitted, and this person for a surgery, and this person is now with Fortis. And I'm telling you, I called him and he just instantly picked up my phone with the same zeal,
Yeah.
supported me with the same heart that we earlier worked with. And that, I feel, is the culture.
It's the
Yeah.
DNA. It's the Tata DNA.
Yeah, it's the Tata
It's the
DNA.
Tata DNA.
And that day, that very day, I was feeling it's Tata's DNA
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
he carried. And I think that's culture,
And
isn't
you
it?
see, there you're showing vulnerability as well, right?
Yeah. It's culture.
It is. These are the moments when it's people keep talking sometimes, right? Oh, from a compensation, that company is paying me more. And what's the new phrase? Somebody told me this was offer hopping or something like that,
Possibly.
And I keep
Yeah,
saying
Multiple
that,
offers at the same time.
yeah. Offer hopping.
So, yeah, so
I think none of us are Gen Z, so we don't know this.
yeah, but
yeah, we're
I've heard
assuming.
No
weird.
offense to Gen Zs.
Yeah, no offense to
Yeah,
Gen Zs, but we're still
and I
yet to
learn from
learn.
them. I learn
Yeah.
from them every day. So I remember, we were having this conversation saying that, but how do you put a weight to respect, empathy,
Yes, absolutely.
dignity, support? Um, and when in 2017 we did this entire journey of codifying and actually articulating what's the culture of Titan.
Right,
And we
right.
met with many people, internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, employees, associates, vendors, shareholders. Late Mr. Xerxes Desai, who's the founder of Titan Company, customers, all of them. And there's one thing, there were many aspects of the culture that came up,
Yes,
but
of
there's
course.
one thing that stood out, right? And that's the unconditional positive regard for people. And we now state it as part of our culture.
Wow,
Wow,
beautiful.
that's
It's
really
the
nice.
unconditional positive regard for people. And everybody said that really is what makes Titan stand above the rest of the
Wow, I'm
organizations.
getting
Brilliant.
goosebumps.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant, yeah.
so what you spoke about is unconditional positive regard for people, because it didn't matter where you were. You picked up the phone and he spoke
And
to
it
you with
didn't
the
matter
same.
where he was.
And it didn't matter where he was, and he was able to pick up the call. And similarly, if you were to speak to any of the Tata Group employees, they will reach
That's
out
how
and
they'll
support.
respond. Yes,
I
that's how
mean,
they'll respond.
nothing changes, right? And for me, that really is the cornerstone for even the organization's success. Bhaskar always says that you look after your people, business will be taken care of.
Yeah,
That's-
that's true.
That just says it all,
Yeah.
I feel. Okay, so Priya, I really want to ask you something about Titan and diversity, equity, inclusion. I've heard a lot about your initiatives and very deep intent of the organization in terms of driving the DEI agenda. Just share, first of all, your personal, uh, observation about DEI overall in the corporate world and then at Titan.
So my perspective at an overall corporate world is that slowly but steadily, I think the needle is shifting. And when I say needle is shifting, I'm also comparing it to some of the Western countries. If I look at in India, I think the rigor with which women on boards has actually been driven is, in my understanding, and I recently saw some data as well. I think India is one of the top countries that has really driven this agenda of having more women on boards. We are still not, perhaps in percentages, it will still be much, much smaller. But I do believe that it's in the right direction. It's in the right direction because I often say that so far the DI journey has always been about filling up the base of the pyramid. And I felt that that was more like a number game. But the intent really shifts when it starts coming into the leadership
In
levels.
the top, yeah.
Yeah.
And with women on boards and women in leadership levels, I think that journey perhaps for India has at least begun.
It has,
Right?
of course.
We have to stay the course. We have to have many more companies that adopt this. And I also believe that a lot more women also have to step up
Yes.
and build their capability to get their seat on the table. So I think there have to be multiple actions at multiple paths that
So would
need
you
to come
agree that
together.
women need to have a very focused competency upskilling
Absolutely.
process for themselves so that
Absolutely.
they can take up serious roles in the organization, take up leadership roles? Do you agree to that?
I think women have to first raise their hands,
Right.
right? And I think they need to also have build their confidence and do whatever it takes to build your confidence.
Right.
Seek the support, go for mentoring, coaching,
mentors.
whatever it takes,
Yeah,
right?
coaches.
But build that confidence. And I would also say build your competence, build your skill, because it's not the gender that should get you, it should be the competence
Your
that
It should be the
gets you.
competency, yes.
Yeah, your
yes, yes.
capability.
Your
whether-
capability and your competence is really what has to come
So in Titan, when it comes to DEI, what are some focused initiatives that you have been taking to make sure that DEI is also part of our culture now?
So Shikha, I would, like I said, and I'm grateful that I'm in a company like Titan, because way back in 1984 itself, when Titan was starting its journey, without even the phrase DEI, I believe the leaders then had seeded this, right?
Yes.
So we have a very large representation of women in manufacturing. We have in fact, not only women, in fact, we often get to DI and speak about women, but DI is also about all genders, and it is also about differently abled people. So there were also assembly lines run by differently abled people in 1984, in the 1990s. And I think that those were times when it didn't have to do with anything about ticking a box on percentages, but purely it came from the fact that, hey, listen, when you are building a business, you've got to do what's right also by society. And I think that's how they built it. So imagine when Hosur was not even in the map, right? In 84, the leaders went, they actually built manufacturing centers, they brought in the capability from all the towns and the villages nearby. So if you go to our factories, Shikha, you will find on an average, people have spent 27 years
Wow.
in the factory.
27 years.
And that's the average.
That's the average.
Crazy,
That's
huh?
the average. There is zero attrition. There's only retirement.
Because of the kind of
Beautiful.
culture, again, I'm saying.
But and where do you hear zero attrition?
I mean,
Tell me one other
strangely
business that can claim
nowhere.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. At
I
least
have,
yeah.
I have one very, politically incorrect question coming to my mind, which I still want to ask you.
Sure.
Do you think leaders understand the difference between equity and equality?
So, no, I don't think all. In fact, it took me some time to also learn
Understand.
Which is
about
fine.
Yeah.
equity
I'm
and
saying which is
equality.
fine, but are they open to learning?
Oh, they are. So I'll tell you what, and here is the beauty of it, right? We are also in a generation, leaders, right, where the children are teaching them a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so if they don't learn it at work, they're certainly learning it at home, right? And I can tell you that every day, or at least a couple of times in a week, my son doesn't cease to shock me, right? I mean, whether it's about gender fluidity, conversation on that subject, or on the different nuances of DEI,
Yeah.
on how they are making choices of brands based on whether those organizations are supporting or not.
Yeah.
And are they
the agenda of
inclusive?
sustainability
yeah,
and DI.
yeah.
Are they inclusive? Are
Yeah.
they sustainable?
Correct.
So let me tell you that it's not a choice whether you're open to learning or not. And leaders are all in the life stages where they have, at least most of them that I know, have in their family, either their own children or in the family ecosystem, they have children who are either Gen Z or young ones who are having this conversation, right? So social media gives you enough exposure, right? And today customers are asking you these questions. So you can't escape it.
So Priya, I have a very tough question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm dealing with a lot of leaders on DEI. What if you were in my place and you were to deal with these leaders who are, in the face of it, taking up very serious DEI initiatives. But when it comes to reality, as leaders, they themselves are being exclusive, like they are doing exclusion with you probably and in front of you. How do you deal with that contradiction in, when you are dealing with such leaders? I am going through this. What is your advice for me?
So let me also state that this is not an overnight journey, Shikha, and we must, uh, like I said, staying the course and being resilient and perseverance is going to be very important here. And we've had this in our journeys as well, right? In terms of, like I said, even when I'm sure when Bhaskar and Mr. Xerxes Desai, Venkat, all of our leaders, when they started, even in the 1984 and 90s, they would have faced resistance. It wouldn't have been
Yeah,
easy, right?
yeah.
So here are some, I don't know if these are hacks, but let me just share some things that at least we've done. One is, whose agenda is it? Right? If it's your agenda, then you will constantly face this,
Face
right?
that battle.
But if it is the head of the organization who is taking this up as the organization's agenda, and yes, it's important to build buy-in and alignment, but after a point, it has to then transition into an organizational mandate as well, right? But that mandate cannot come like a force, right?
Yeah,
It
it
has
can't
to
be
come.
forced.
Yeah, it has to come also with a certain, I would say, a natural rhythm, right? You can't force it, because if you force it, what happens is that
Yeah.
one, you are moving away from the core, which is meritocracy and competence. Meritocracy and competence should always be at the center of what you're doing, right? And very recently, in our leadership conclave, we had Indra Nui, who addressed the Titan leaders, and I really loved what she said. She said that in your DI journey, do not make it about hire so many more women, because then you are, what should you be hiring for? You should be hiring for the right capability, the right talent, the right competence, right? And make sure in that process you are not being biased about women and so on and so
Yeah,
forth. I think
yeah.
that's
You're
important.
giving them the opportunity to at least come to the table.
They have
So
to
at
come to the
least, yeah,
table.
at least have the CVs
Correct.
equally there
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you're
yeah,
interviewing,
yeah.
right?
So we've struggled. The moment you do quota systems, so much
Yeah.
percentage, and we've gone all
That
of that
doesn't help.
route. Actually, what happens is that you get a certain passive aggression as well coming through the system, right? Because it's not just the leaders, actually, Shikha. In fact, I feel at times the leaders,
It's not the
it's
leaders.
not the challenge
Yeah.
may not be sitting with the leaders. I'm not referring to your situation, but it is in the line of the organizational
Yes,
system.
that's where it happens.
Because you have supervisors, managers, senior managers. I mean, leaders are there, but I'm just saying at each of these segments, you've got to make sure that that change is built. So sometimes it's not just the leaders, it's also about in the organizational systemic shifts, how are you bringing it? And I remember, yeah, I just remembered, when we did the non-conscious bias sessions across the organization. And this point that you brought about there were these questions about the role of a woman and the role of a man. You know how, when you have to walk the privilege line.
Right.
So we had this whole thing on the privilege line. And I cannot tell you after that session how many men actually came up to us and said that, I can now understand what my mother, wife, sister, or daughter go through. Right? I mean, that's the power of doing these sessions. So, if you go with itna percentage women lana hai, it becomes restrictive. If the focus is on inclusion, if the focus is on tilling the ground, Shikha, that how deep can I till? Because it's like the house. If you have to build multi-story building, your piling foundation has to go very deep, right? So till the ground so deep that you're not worried about the percentage of today, but you're tilling it for the next 10, 15, 20 years, where you can have foundations of not just women, but the LGBTQI plus, all kinds of differently abled people who can come and flourish in that, and that's how you make the society better. So every time the organization works on the inclusion journey and equity and inclusion in your company, you make the society better. That's the way to look at
So,
it.
Priya, I have another very tough question for you right now, okay? Be prepared. If you and I are working and I see you being biased with me as a vendor partner while in your organization I'm driving DEI with you as vendor partner, but I see this bias in you, should I call this out to you as your vendor partner or should I just sit back and not call it out? Because for me, it's a lot about impact. If I'm doing DEI with an organization, my real focus is impact, and it really hurts me when somebody is biased and like also acknowledging their bias. Should I call it out? If really I want to bring that impact, my brain says, okay, call it out. But what's your advice to me or to others
I
who are
would say call it out. I'll tell you why. Because it's about respect and dignity, right? And it's about the right of doing business in a environment which is professional. And I would say, I know that, and because I'm in Tata and Titan, but I must tell you that when we talk about Titan company, we don't talk about only employees. Do you know that in our vendor ecosystem, we have enforced women's restrooms?
right.
Right? We have, in fact, when we look at, and we have about 20, by the way, our on-roll employees are about 9,000, but our ecosystem is 70,000.
What?
70.
Yeah.
70,000.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
That's a big number, right? Now, for us, we don't look at, so when we
Only
do
Titan.
our ethics cascade, when we do our Tata code of conduct, we have something called Right Way at Titan. We do it for all our business
70,000.
partners. We do it for all our vendors.
Are
we
you
do it,
serious?
Yeah, we do it for all of them.
Wow.
So for Titan company, like I said, that looking after your people is not just about on-roll. It's looking after your people. When you walk into a store, you would not even know whether that store belongs
Is a
to the company
franchisor.
or the franchisee. But if that franchisee is not looking after its people, you will know it.
Yes.
So, what are the very important steps an organization should take when it comes to inclusion, holistically?
When we started this journey, I remember, and I met with many partners in India who support organizations in DEI, right? Yeah. And many of them spoke to me about business case banao, do a business case and all of that. And we also came together. We said, "Acha, business case. And I remember this conversation that I had with Venkat, and he just looked at me and my colleague Sukanya, and he was like, "Why business case?" In fact, it was amazing because he wrote a mail to the entire organization saying that this journey of DI, of inclusion and equity, is important because that's how our society is represented. If the society representation has 50% women, and if it has multiple genders, why should Titan Company not be representing that society?
Yes.
So it is the right thing to do. That's the phrase he used. He said that it is the right thing to do. And that's why
We're doing it.
Titan's purpose of DI is not a business case. It's because it's the right thing to do by what the society represents.
So, in the inclusion journey, whether it's appropriate to choose being fair or being right?
Being right should lead to fairness.
Interesting. Okay.
The other way also, I'm just thinking aloud. Fair, if you're fair, then it'll probably be the right thing to do.
Yeah. In my
I'm just-
opinion, I mean,
I'm just
it's my personal opinion that what Priyanka is saying, I probably will resonate with that more.
Yeah.
If I'm being fair to you, I probably may be hurting you in this moment, but eventually I'll be doing the right thing for you, isn't it?
I think it works both ways now that
And
maybe
if I'm doing the right thing, would I not be also?
yeah, you would
maybe you were doing the right thing, but it's not fair to me because it didn't land.
always
You
be
may
fair.
not think it's fair at that point in time.
Yeah, I'm also still thinking about
And
what
you
she's
probably
saying is
can't
also
be fair
right.
to everyone.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
just-
Actually, what is fairness?
Yeah.
I think
Because it is, if it's led by individual perspective. In fact, both the words, right and fairness, has a lot of gray in it.
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, it is very important for us to qualify what the right and what the fair
Fair thing to do.
is for an organization.
Right.
Then in the context of the organization, you have to see it.
Correct.
I also don't know if they are the two sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
and they often perhaps have to go hand in hand and cannot be without the other.
So, Priya, I think because financial literacy is very, very close to me. I've been doing financial literacy
yeah.
from last over a decade now, and I've heard that you are driving big way financial literacy, especially for blue collars at Titan. Just share some bit of that part on your initiative and why. Because not, let me be very honest, we've gone to hundreds and hundreds of organizations speaking about the importance of financial literacy. Not many organizations are currently taking it very seriously, but what made Titan take it seriously in terms of?
In fact, it came out of a meeting that Suparna, our CEO for Watches and Wearables, attended in US by McKinsey for women leaders. And one of the things in that forum it was discussed was about financial independence for women, right? And it seems to be not just a problem that we think limits to one
India,
country, but
yeah.
it seems to be like
It's a global issue.
issue,
It's a
right?
global issue.
So when she brought that thought back, one of the actions that we decided we will take on is that building financial literacy for our employees. Actually, I'm saying not only women, right? This is so women certainly because of the
They're
I
more
think
suppressed.
also
terms of
because of how our
finances.
society has
Yeah,
always
yeah.
looked at stereotyping
Yeah,
that
yeah.
bit on. So that's one of the reasons. But also another reason financial literacy is important is that a lot of young people, and this is in fact it's not limited only to blue collar. In fact, even
To white
across,
collar as well, yeah.
across what
Yeah,
we're seeing
yeah.
is that a lot of now, this whole online games and many things are coming
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
and in some ways people are also using that to double their money, triple their money, and that's one. We're also finding that people lifestyles are changing, right? iPhones and let's
Yeah.
say
Very expensive accessories all the time.
yeah, all
Yeah,
of that, right? And it is becoming somewhere a certain mental pressure that it's building, both financial pressure, mental pressure, emotional pressure. So families are also getting impacted. And we had, unfortunately, a situation that an employee committed suicide because of this financial burden. And honestly, it's the family that's suffering. The person has a small child and all of that. So, with all of this coming in, we thought that it's very important for us to build, financial prudence, financial literacy, financial independence for different segments of the
I
organization.
think this has been the pattern where till the time there is not a big trigger,
Yeah.
in the organization or at home, nobody really takes financial
Yeah,
literacy
yeah.
very seriously
The,
for them.
the other
for them.
turning point, Shikha, is COVID.
Oh, yes. I
Actually,
totally agree,
COVID
yeah.
had opened eyes for people to understand, because suddenly they were left with not knowing exactly what was happening, because in many houses, let's say if the man of the house was dealing with all of it, they didn't even have password to the system. They didn't.
Yeah.
There were no bills. They didn't know what was the finances. So
Yeah.
Also, who were there, I think they so many people lost their jobs and they didn't have their savings, and they
And
had
most of-
loans to pay
Yeah.
off.
And most of the India lives on paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for them, they didn't know what to do
how
next.
to pay the EMI next.
And the other phenomenon that started also was these online loans which were coming in,
Oh.
right? With and
Making it
and
easy, accessible.
but also that entire phone getting accessed by them, all the data going. So a whole lot of these things coming together, and the moment this happened, we said, hey, listen, there's a lot of need to build financial. So we, in fact, like we have emotional wellness, we have financial wellness
Yes,
as
yes.
one theme, and that's running across. And we also realize that, it's important to extend to the ecosystem again. So the people who are in the housekeeping, security, all of them,
Everybody.
it is very important for them to understand this space.
Awesome.
So we've kind of done a lot of this in our manufacturing space. We're also doing it in retail. We've also done it in retail, in fact, the whole, the financial wellness and financial prudence. We've got people who've given them examples on what kind of savings they should look at, saving instruments, safe saving instruments, and how much should they be saving. Also, how to live within your means rather than, instead of this borrowing and that culture, or credit cards. I mean, living through it.
But I'll share another perspective on financial literacy and inclusion, that a lot of people feel left out. Let's say two people who are in the senior manager role are talking about stocks or talking about investments, and a fresher, somebody, or maybe somebody senior who's never really looked at their finances in a very organized manner. Now, these two well-aware people are talking about their portfolios,
Yeah.
and suddenly these people are feeling left out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now, I
That's
have been
happened.
really talking about to the organizations that financial literacy is a very, very imperative inclusion topic.
Yes, it is.
That we all must really focus on, and it can really bring a lot of conversation and upliftment to both men and women,
confidence.
and confidence,
Yeah, I
and the
agree.
way they take up their new roles or maybe leadership roles. It will change the way they look at their own profiles.
Yes.
Demystify.
Yeah.
Don't make it this big monster that I don't think. In fact,
Exactly.
something that you said did happen.
Oh,
Okay, with and this was a bunch of again leaders and senior people who were talking, and there was this one person who overheard and said, "Hey, listen, how do I?" And then that person went, did some homework and then came back after a week and said, "Hey, listen, but I'm now on top of it. I've got all the details, all the."
yeah.
So FOMO is what made him do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so that's why it can be such an important topic in terms
Yeah.
of inclusion,
Yeah.
that people will start learning because of FOMO, but eventually
Yeah.
how it's going to really help them.
And it is good to see, it's not about whether you invest or not, but it's
Yeah.
important for
To
you to
know everything.
right?
And eventually
Being
you'll start
informed,
investing
then
then.
decisions are different, right?
Yeah,
Choices
You
make.
choose and you decide. Yeah. What is that one thing that you want to give as a message to our audience that they can take away from Tatas and Titan?
The unconditional positive regard for people is one. And if I may add one more, I
Please.
think the freedom to explore would be the other.
What's your favorite book?
Inside Out Leadership by Rajiv Vij.
Okay.
Awesome, okay. Any favorite quote?
I don't know about a quote, but I can tell you that there's a book called The Advice Trap
Okay.
by Michael Stainer. And I think what I really love about that book is about how just refraining from giving advice can be so empowering to the other person. Not that I have practiced it completely, but that's something that I always keep in
Yeah,
mind.
as HR, we always jump to giving direction. So I want to also know that what does happiness at workplace mean at Titan?
I'm going to quote something that one of my colleagues actually said, that the speed with which you come to office being greater than the speed with which you want to leave the office, I think is the happiness.
That's so
Excellent.
amazing, huh?
Very nice. And what does it mean, happiness? What does happiness mean personally to you?
I think the joy of just coming to this place, for me, it's an institution. It's like a university, and I learn continuously. I just love this place. That brings me happiness.
Great. So thank you.
Thank
We've
you.
had a great conversation. We loved every moment of it, Priya. And I'm sure our audience will have a lot to learn from. And
Yes, thank you, Priya, so much. And I asked you so many tough questions. So thank you for answering all of those tough
Shikha,
questions.
you had prepped me for it. That you're going to be the tough
No.
one out of this good cop, bad cop.
I didn't prep you for the politically incorrect questions, huh?
yeah.
But you did prep me for the fact that you're going to be the bad cop in this.
Oh, that, yes. I did.
No,
Thank
I
you so
enjoyed.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this episode with Priya. And keep watching Office Tales and People podcast for more such interviews. And don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel.
See you on the next one.